Hello, hello, hello. Hoping I wouldn't have to be very active this week, but I haven't really stopped at all. Today was filled with just chaos. So, have I got a story for you? I didn't think I would be able to do this thing, no makeup, no nothing. I just did it. The reason I did it was because I'd rather be doing this than laying in a bed, and I tried to go and get tested for COVID on Thursday and was turned away at the testing centre and could not acquire a RAT test. Shortly after that, my radiator blew, and then it just escalated like this tiny little one thing was another thing and then another thing. And it was just epically one bad moment after another. Once the radiator blew, I was like, this is no mowing lawns. There's no fixing anything. I'm just sick, and whether I have COVID or not, it's going to be determined. But I definitely, two of my clients that I work for, I mow lawns. I don't hide that. Two of the clients actually were close contact of a COVID positive. One actually did receive a positive outcome. So, if anyone wants to grab the link that I dropped in the comments to hop up at any point you would like, because having you on air is a pretty cool idea at this point. That's why I dropped the link. So if anyone wants to pop up on air with me, cool. You don't have to show your face or anything, just voice. Sorry if I cough in the middle of a couple of things. I didn't think I would even be doing this. I do look a bit rough, and this is what possible COVID looks like. To be rejected from a testing centre, that was a bit shocking. And then have the lady explain, this is in the middle of the day, like this is like midday, rolling up to it, and I'm like, like 3 or 4 people just lining up in our cars, and I thought, definitely I'm going to get in. Watched a couple of people go through. Sorry. As those people went through, they go, no. Got to come back tomorrow. And I'm like, okay. I did intend to go back on the Friday. But the moment the car died and the radiator shot, I was like, whatever the hell this is, and if the client is, I got a text message later on that day that my client was positive for COVID. Now I'm sitting here in my house, you're having to look at me, so now you're all having to endure this because my amazing client did not inform me before I rocked up that he was a possible contact. Not until halfway through the conversation. I was wearing a mask and hand sanitizing, but I was all sweaty and gross and just real rough. As you do when you're mowing a lawn, you're not going to rock up looking like you got your best makeup on and your hair on. And my husband does do the pushing of the lawnmower. I just do the things that he can't, like lift things and other things, because he just shouldn't. And I do a lot of the, obviously, talking. See? Talking. So, this is going to be a rough run for you guys. I hope you can hear me well and see me well. If you do want to click on the link to pop up on board, I'd be happy to have you. So this week I got a super exciting story. This is the only reason I didn't delay. I was like, well, I look really shady, but I've got something fun for you. So, without further ado, here's the fun part. Alrighty. Mama be crazy. Alright. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Check this craziness out. Just because. Okay. Okay. Does anyone remember when Clive Palmer wanted to build the Titanic too? Oh my god. This is fun. I've had fun rifling through the internet. Give me enough time and I will demolish this internet. So I come across this fun little story of these Americans talking about how this Australian businessman, Clive Palmer, was going to have a Titanic too. And I was like, wait a minute, I know that guy. So when I looked at it, oh, jeez, one of my things popped up. Oh, okay. So I went to it and I was like, I know that. Clive Palmer, he couldn't afford to pay his nickel workers. He didn't clean up the area of his nickel refinery. If you don't know, he helped one of his family members go overseas to avoid any prosecution in relation to the nickel refinery here in Queensland. No. He still had $500 million to burn. And I give you what buys $500 million. His Titanic 2 plan. He has some interesting photos of what he wants. You know, all sorts of famous people who'd like to be a part of it. Here's a photo of Mr. Palmer himself. I mean, the guy looks cheery enough, you know. Don't begrudge me. But that's not the issue I've got. If he did it all right and he was like building a ship, you know, dude. If he hadn't have stymied COVID, if he hadn't messed with our democracy, if he hadn't have, you know, done the whole nickel refinery thing and messed everything up, this would be a nothing burger story for me. But this is, he looks like Trump in one of his suits. They never fit quite right. It always looks ill-adjusted. It's horrendously bad. This idea of a Titanic 2, I don't know if he's really thought this one through for many reasons. Just thinking about it, spitballing. The first one sort of didn't make it. It had a very ill-fated ending, much like Clive Palmer's career. But that's not the only weird part I'd point out. Clive Palmer, why would you build a boat when doesn't look like you're building a boat? I thought, how did an American come across this Facebook page? I thought, this story goes somewhere. You know how when a business person creates a little empire and they get these weird little, I don't know, tricks that they do where they do hiding of money and everything? And I thought, what was sort of happening around that time? They were looking at him for his nickel refinery, for his political donations, and a few other things. And I thought, how is this project actually going? And I thought, maybe it'd be going well. Turns out, not so much. So, when I had a look at it, I thought, let's see what he's been up to in that project. So, let's have a look at where he is. He's moved the timeline several times. They call him a businessman. I'd call him a rip-off of Australian workers, but you know, business insider. Who am I to tell them how to do their headlines? If you're just joining me, I am quite sick, and excuse the weird face. I do look rather weird ordinarily. This is a new weird, so it can be weird for both of us. So this is interesting. He took a US amount of $500 million into rebuilding the Titanic 2. He announced it in 2012. Now, if you remember, he was in the Senate, he was doing lots of different things, he had weird little projects everywhere. It was just a really, really bizarre time. You know, we're coming up to the big Tony Abbott year and everything else. And that's when our democracy started to go down. And I kind of feel like it's a little bit of correct fitting for this story. Speaking about the Titanic and democracy seems to have a, if you will, parallel moment to that story. But here's why. Okay. The ship will be able to accommodate 2,400 passengers, featured a modern-day navigation technology, safety systems, including adequate number of lifeboats and jackets of passengers. Now, if anyone remembers the original Titanic, apparently it didn't have enough lifeboats. So if he's going to claim it's a replica, don't know if you can exactly replicate not enough lifeboats. But he apparently is. I don't know how well a boat would be during a pandemic either. No one was to know that when he announced this in 2012 that 2022, well, 2020, we would be in the start of a pandemic. But it got super interesting. This story got like, wow. The story of the Titanic is one that has intrigued many for years, and those who are most intrigued by it, there may soon be a way to experience the wonder of the most luxurious cruise ship in the world. Which is interesting that that's how they see it, as like this massive, big luxury cruise ship. I'm more of a look at it like, you got too big for your britches, told people it wouldn't sink, and what do you know, it sank. You know, maybe the 2020 hindsight view. You know, I wonder why they call it. The whole thing was like an ill-fated, overconfident, nutso kind of thing to do. I mean, imagine building a boat, particularly in those times of telling people, I'm going to build this massive boat, and I'm so confident I'm not even going to put enough life rafts on. And I'm so confident that nothing will be able to sink it. I think it's one of them, whenever I see a car with flames up the side of it, you're like, yeah, that's how you're going to lose it, buddy. That's the first thing that pops into my head. Swear to God. I'm always like, this is how you're going to lose your car, buddy. I don't know if it actually happens like that, but it always does. Okay, the Titanic was the largest passenger ship of its time in the early 1900s, and the Titanic's builder called it the unsinkable. But much like Clive Palmer's career, whenever he does something stupid, we all have to endure the stupidity with him. And when he says something stupid, like, I'm going to build a Titanic, and yeah, that's how it sort of comes out, because you got to remember, this is the same guy who rocked up to the Senate in a different car every day. Yeah, he flaunted his money and greed so much that he couldn't pay his workers. No. But he could rock up to the Senate in a different car almost every day. That's what money gives you. What happened to the old trickle-down economics? That didn't quite pan out for anyone, did it? But this story is super interesting. And this is going to be the thing. This gets more interesting. Okay, I found something on it. This is going to blow your mind. Check this out. Okay. I truly didn't think this is what I would be talking about today. But apparently, did I pick the right store? Oh, hold on one sec. I might have picked the wrong one. I've got to find the right one. Sorry, I'm a little bit sick and crazy at the moment. Okay. I think that's the right. No. So here's what I found on that. So it's on hold. He has moved the date several times. It has to be noted. But listen to just how this sounds. This almost sounds like one of them need a way to hide a bit of money away, but that no one can really get hold on, that I can say, $500 million is, caught up in some sort of project. Now, listen to this, because this sounds like one of them, don't know what's going to happen.
The 2 is being built in China.
Hold on.
The Titanic 2 is being built in China and is almost complete.
That's incorrect. People are getting two projects confused. The Chinese Roman IC project is the construction of a full-size Titanic replica for a theme park. It is not a...
I should have explained that there are two different things going on here. One that talks about the Titanic that is being built in China, where they're building it for a theme park, and then there's Clive Palmer's shit show.
Real ship. It will be a hotel and tourist attraction. Construction is at quite an advanced stage, but has slowed down in the past few years. It is not clear when it will be finished, if ever. The Roman IC project is not the same as Clive Palmer's Titanic 2 project. Palmer's Titanic 2 will be a real functioning ship.
News. Titanic 2 will set sail in 2022.
That's incorrect. Clive Palmer has moved the goalposts a number of times. Originally Palmer said that Titanic 2 would sail on her maiden voyage in 2016. Then he revised the date to 2018. Then to 2022. The latter has not been confirmed, however, a date of 2022 is probably impossible. We believe that the Titanic 2 is still in her design phase. No shipyard contract has yet been signed. No steel has been cut. It will take at least a year to build such a ship, possibly longer, so a launch date of 2022 is almost certainly fake news.
Oh, okay. The Titanic wasn't short of lifeboats, so I do have that piece of information wrong. It lacked a crew with a good conscience to allow the third-class passengers to access them. Oh, so it did have... So that's what happens when you watch it on some sort of Leonardo DiCaprio stupid movie. You don't read about it properly. So, passengers to access them sound like an LMP policy. It really does. Isn't this interesting though? Where is this money? Interesting, right? I don't know what to think about it. It turns out Nothing has been done here. Nothing. Not even a piece of metal has been cut. Nothing. This project is a nothing burger. It hasn't even started. He's moved the goalpost so much that it almost seems like a money hiding project. Like see now, allegedly, I want to be really, really careful with my words, because allegedly, that's what this is. This is like what we're looking at here is essentially not a sheet of metal has gone up, but there is a project as well, one that is being, see, here's where people were a little bit deceived. They're also building a Titanic replica in China as a hotel theme park kind of thing. God knows why they want to, you know, ill-fated idea like that, given that China's building standards. I don't want to say like, I don't want to say too much that makes it sound derogatory, but Chinese building codes aren't exactly great. So building a Titanic, yeah, makes me a bit cringy. But isn't that interesting? $500 million, not even a scrap of steel has been laid out for it. Now, if that wasn't interesting enough, hold on. Okay, okay, I want to share my screen. If that wasn't interesting enough, I think it's that, no. I think it's this one. Okay. The Titanic 2 was built historically as an accurate copy of the original ocean liner. Palmer and his shipping company Blue Star, I didn't know that there was like a whole thing with it. Like, this is like me kind of playing catch up. This is I mean, even without the pandemic, because he announced it in 2012, you'd have to think, you know, this was already a bad business idea. But looking at it further, he never really did anything with it. So does he still have this money, or where is it? A hired by a team of historians, including Titanic expert Steve Hall, to help recreate the design of the 9-deck ship. 840 rooms. Palmer appointed Finnish naval architecture from Delta Marion to design the structure, and a German company in Hamburg ship model basin to oversee the liner's seaworthy and safety standards, right? The design was unveiled in February 2013 at several glittering press events. Isn't this how they do it? No. Isn't this how they do it? They get these like really bizarre, like showy press announcements and glitter bomb everything, and then you're like, well, that was a big nothing. Including Gala Bash held in the USS Intrepid in New York City, as a lavish dinner at London's Natural History Museum. Now, Americans are fascinated with this boat, hence why they were like, this is your guy, right? And I'm like, I don't want to own that shit show, but if you're going to make me own him, let me tell you some bad things about him. That's how that conversation honestly went. I'm not going to even sugarcoat that one for you. Making me own Clive Palmer, are you kidding me? The modern reproduction will be 13 feet wider and 3 inches longer. Well, that's not exactly a replica, is it? than the original Titanic, and a gross tonnage of 56,000 tons, and it will be good 10,000 tons heavier than the first ship. The Titanic 2 is expected to be comfortably accommodate 2,435 first, second, and third class passengers and a crew of 473. Now, isn't that interesting? If it ever does get built, Titanic 2 will look uncannily like the original from the outside, but inside will be a 21st century new ship. And it will boast state-of-the-art satellite controls, digital navigation. No, because what? You can build a replica, dude. Palmer is more like the iceberg. There is more of it that you can't see than is visible. Exactly. But isn't this story interesting? This is so salacious for me. Because this is how a lot of rich people do this stuff. Sorry. This story is so interesting because loads of rich people do stuff like this. They always have these huge announcements, throw money at it, and then go, look, I'm going to do this amazing thing, give me money. I would wonder, you have to wonder, did he fundraise for this? Like, was it a fundraising effort? Was he a little bit low on money at the time? These are all valid questions because this is how they do this stuff. Is it just his money? Is he hiding money? Like, why do this extravagant thing? Like, for instance, why say they're going to build an exact replica? Like, there's no way he could have got away with the exact naval part. Sorry. Clearly, because it couldn't detect an iceberg. Correction, I don't know whether it could or it couldn't, but at the time, it did hit one. But you would hope that it has the very best features to it. But isn't that interesting that they're like, no, we're just gonna do this thing. But then there's some guy who's also trying to build a Noah's Ark thing, which I'm at a loss to understand why you'd want to build like a Noah's Ark thing. Like, these people don't pay their workers properly. They've got all these rich little haven things. The Noah's Ark dude, not even kidding, has very conservative values and says, horrible things to the LGBTQ community, and, gets all of his tax exempt status. Well be it. But then he, doesn't really do much for his community, but wants to build a Noah's Ark thing. This is the thing with the rich that bothers me. I don't care that they're rich. I care when they don't, A, provide for the community that they're in. B, clean up, I don't know, like a freaking nickel refinery that you should have done. C, pay any workers properly. D, let's just stick with, if you've got that much money, how about you not be an asshole and ruin democracy with it? These are the things that the two men have a lot in common. Both play heavy roles in politics and just shouldn't. I don't begrudge anyone making millions and millions of dollars. Like, I really, really cannot stress that. If you worked hard and you've earned it, whatever. But they also get all these government grants while telling, poor families that they're not entitled to it because, just because. Apparently it doesn't incentivize the economy, which is an outright lie. But, I mean, this conversation definitely needs to be had about how they have all this money and they will tell you, poor people are no good. And I mean, his name is mud around the people that he had that nickel refinery. He also had a fun park up here somewhere. And that didn't work out too well either. He kind of reminds me a bit of Trump. Like, he has all these fantastic business ideas that don't really be very businessy, and they sort of flop. But the guy does make a bit of money. I mean, who am I to tell a man how to do that stuff? But I really, really want to merge how this guy has come out and destroyed our democracy, but yet he's got the money to buy this country over 5 times. Forrest Twiggy does the exact same thing. They will ask for money. They will beg, you know, like the healthy welfare card, and they will tell you, you know, name something Palmer has ever achieved in public good. Now, the only thing that gets close to it is before his Senate run, he was doing like weird little Easter things, and he'd hand things out to people. Now, if that was a PR stunt, probably, but that was just before his Senate run, and he helped out a couple of families, and he did do some things, but by and large, he just doesn't. And then he'll tell you things like, I'm for the Australian person. Okay, buddy, have at it. What part of backing the LNP was part of the Australian people? Just spitballing it here. I know that the guy used to be a Liberal Party person, that he'll never ever stop. But he messed with democracy, told deliberate lies, and now has messed around in a pandemic and lied about that. The man is this endless grifty kind of dude. But I'm not done with him yet. Not at all. This isn't just a story about a dude who wanted to build a boat with $500 million and there's not a cent to show for it. This isn't about a guy who just hit a bit of money, ruined it, and fucking messed around in our democracy and spread COVID misinformation. These are all things that this man has done. Now, again, I have to stress, I do not begrudge a man making money. But why was he allowed to make so much money where he could make a Titanic 2 but not pay his workers that are still out of money all these years on? And that nickel refinery, Queensland was left to pay that bill for all that stuff to be cleaned up. So, I mean, I like to be fair and balanced about these sorts of things, but they're not fair and balanced in society. They're not balancing what our needs are. And that's precisely where we're at. Look, we have an opportunity to fix this stuff. Clive Palmer needs to be brought over with some ideals, you know, where he's stopped running as a political party. No way. He and Forrest Twiggy, I'm fine that they make their money. I'm not fine how they do it, but it seems perfectly legal. That's fine. But I don't think they should be allowed to do things like healthy welfare card, and I don't think they should be allowed to be funding these politicians. That's, to me, outright bribery. And to make political campaign ads like Clive Palmer did, that deliberately lied. And then to do these massive announcements over this boat. As we're leading up to this election, this is why Clive interests me. Because I'm watching all of his YouTubes. Now, if you haven't caught one of his icky YouTube videos, I wouldn't want to denigrate my channel to that. But they're out there. And I've reported them every time. Why? Not because of it, like, he spread misinformation with Craig Kelly. He's an agitator. He's not actually about political discourse. He's about just shaking up the system that benefits him. which again brings me back to why I think he and Trump had a lot in common. Have a look at what he did with Western Australia. He sued Western Australia. This is all public record. He lost during the middle of the pandemic, but he had Scott Morrison's help on a lawsuit that said just wanted to enter into Western Australia. And when he was told no, the entitled twat went to court. That to me says the guy just doesn't exercise any restraint or common sense. But, you know, I really, really want to stress, I don't hate the guy. I just wish he'd be more productive with his time. And messing around in my political space where the poor will be affected, where the old boy... Can you imagine if he did not fund so much in the last election? Just for a single moment. So, can you imagine if he didn't do that? And he didn't throw his stupid money at it with lies? I wouldn't care how many Titanics he built. He's an idiot. I don't care how many millions he wants to go hiding around, as long as he pays his workers and stays out of political discord. You know, and the reason I want him out is because he's not benefiting society as a whole. I believe that if you're going to be what's that word, where you hand over money and you're rich people? There's a word. I can never quite pronounce it. Anyway, the idea that he hands over this money in these political ways and mucks around, that's a concern. I just want some fairness, and I want some truth, and I want some media laws. I want some media laws to be smacked on these people. You know, the Liberal government talks about how they're going to introduce all these media laws. Do you know they're the biggest trollers on the internet? Oh yeah, my word. And not just the good job, Angus, good job. No. They're way more trolly. They get stuff like, for instance, the group that you're watching from, yeah, it's been limited. Why? Because an LMP person saw it and got it limited because they can. And I got that word directly. I mean, these people aren't even shameless about it. Why do you think he attacks TikTok? It's younger people, yet he'll have a TikTok account, but he won't allow people to comment on it. Bit weird? Yeah, I thought so too. My kids are the ones who showed me that he had it. I have a 15-year-old who is not political. There is a part of me that ums and ahs if I want my child to be political. And I do that a lot because I believe that we should teach civics. Whether I should be the one teaching that civics, I don't know. But when my daughter's seen it, she knows what I do and said, Mum, I know you don't have TikTok, so I'm going to show you something. So I was like, hey, darling, what is it? Do you know Scott Morrison has a TikTok and you can't comment? So kids do what kids do and made weird parodies of it, which was, I don't think, the better option. I think he just should have turned on comments and let the shit show begin. But, you know, I'm not his media advisor or photo op guy. I'm not the one taking pictures of weird barramundi while the food shelves are shut. Anyway, moving on. Next story. We have the saga of Tennis Australia. A decision has been made. Thankfully, the one I was hoping. Okay. Novak Djokovic's news live. Tennis star loses appeal over Australian visa, faces deportation. Okay. Okay, sorry about the coughing. He's lost his appeal and visa being cancelled after a court dismissed the men's world #1 appeal, meaning he now faces deportation. The federal court judge upheld a decision made on Friday by the immigration minister and will likely mean that Djokovic, who is not vaccinated against COVID-19, will remain in detention in Melbourne before being deported in a separate blow. Now, having a look at the media hype around this, they're making it sound like he's in like a detention. Look at Sky News, he's in detention. I've never ever heard of one's, fight for the Bibella family or refugees or any real detainees. But don't get me too excited. I'll start coughing and then yelling, and it's all just bad. Sky News. I thought about showing you, but it was a bad idea. I can't handle it. The federal court upheld the decision made Friday by the immigration minister, likely means that Djokovic, who is not. Hold on. Where was I up to? So he will face a possible exclusion zone of 3 years. He's a 34-year-old man and could end his hopes of playing in Melbourne ever again. The minister cancelled the visa on the ground that Djokovic's presence in Australia may be risk health and good order of Australians trying to stick to the rules of the pandemic. His visa was initially cancelled on June 6 at Melbourne Airport. Hours afterwards, they decided that he didn't qualify for a medical exemption for unvaccinated visitors. Now, here's what intrigues me about that, for a few reasons. They could have, when he first applied for it, Border Fast granted his visa, yet people are blaming Dan Andrews for it. Border Fast, I like that. Remember when Ruby Princess happened and the New South Wales people were being blamed for Ruby Princess, meanwhile Peter Dutton was saying, not me, not me, not me. And it was super interesting to watch the two duke it out over who had jurisdiction in that. It's later determined that the federal government did, and that rumours were widely, highly regarded as Scott Morrison had friends on that particular boat, and that they were allowed in without checking on anything. Well, it's a good question. Why do we need this government? It does nothing. Is it helping you? Is it helping me? And now it looks like I got the virus, so I think that's the other reason I did this, so you could see it's not been fun. And I don't smoke, I don't drink, and I don't party, obviously. 9 o'clock's my bedtime, and I'm up by 5 in the morning. And this thing has just knocked me stupid. But I want you to, understand that someone that's careful, walks around with a mask, puts hand sanitizer on, tells my clients I'm rocking up, doing your yard, it's supposed to be contactless, you pay me online, and I still got it. Congrats, God knows how life works. When he told me that he was a possible positive contact and then it was confirmed, I was like, thank you, buddy. So, Dan Andrews had nothing to do with this decision. Dan Andrews would not like it for Novak Djokovic to be in Melbourne at all, considering the work that he and his government did make to ensure that his people were kept very, very safe. Like mask mandating, like vaccinations, like social distancing, like quarantining, and telling New South Wales, no, you almost got me this one. Nellie swore he told New South Wales to stay where you are, basically. I would have said it more interestingly, and I would have went, I don't want part of your death culty kind of government. That's how I would have said it. Doesn't mean I'm right, it just means I'm a mean person. And Dean Andrews is an absolute trooper. But it gets worse. Because then they had real fears that Djokovic would create a anti-vaxxer sentiment. Now that brings me on to my next story. As we feared, anti-vaxxers fill the ICUs, as expected to reveal the total impact they have on the health system. Australian hospitals and the anti-vax heartland has made startling admission that all 6 of the patients currently in ICU are unvaccinated. This must have been Lismore-based hospital. It has now been forced to open the 3rd COVID ward with 50 patients admitted after contacting the virus. No, that's hard. Here am I looking like it's a little bit deceptive. Like, I look sick, I sound sick, but no one's seen me staying up to 4 o'clock in the morning coughing, sleeping until 9 a.m. and then popping up and being able to do this. I don't want to muck around with you. This has knocked me senseless. But I've always worked. Always. And until I take my last breath, I'm going to work. So, understand that I do have weird little things like that. And I'm sure a lot of others that are in this same position as me are doing the exact same thing. Trudging it out, dealing with the virus, and trying to still work. I'm lucky enough to be able to do stuff like this, where, I show you some stuff, and you get more informed. I can't do my lawns at the moment because my radiator's shot, but I wouldn't anyway. I would wait to do that. But I'm still doing things around the house, like climbing things and being nutso. But this thing with the ICUs and the unvaccinated, come on. It's tragic on so many levels, and they're kind of encouraged to be nuts. And the Lismore-based hospital, if you've ever been to New South Wales, you'd understand these rural hospitals weren't designed for this. Never. I think it's even like a base hospital. And they call it that because it just doesn't have the capacity for stuff like this. These rural hospitals will elect Conservative people, and in return, the Conservative people will say, F you get nothing. Even sell out the farmers, but they will keep voting for it. And hence Barnaby Joyce's position. The reported current crisis is unfolding is exactly as doctors predicted, with the majority of hospital cases in the unvaccinated. It is as we feared. Chris Ingle, keep in mind I am fully vaccinated and would not have it any other way. I'm still going for my booster in February when I am due, and I am going to trot along. I have a feeling I would have been in a more crappy show had I not been vaccinated. Just going to lay that one out for you right now. Because I'm not. Hey, I'm nearly 40. I've turned 39 on Tuesday. I think that number's right. I'll have to ask my mum. because I can't do maths right now. Like, I'm overweight. I got liver and kidney funness going on. So take my word for it, it's not fun. And I think if I wasn't vaccinated, I'd be in a lot more trouble. The Daily Telegraph reported that the current crisis unfolding is exactly as doctors predicted. When as feared, Dr. Chris Ingle from the hospital's Medical Staff Council told the publication, we're seeing almost exclusively unvaccinated population at the hospital, exclusively unvaccinated in the intensive care. Now, full disclosure, I've never been in an ICU unit like this. I've been into like areas after you have an operation and all that kind of stuff. I've watched my husband being in high care, but an ICU ward, from what I understand, never seen, is a very, very different saga altogether. There would be a tsunami here if everyone predicted it would sweep through the pockets of the unvaccinated. Just 83% of the vaccination rates in Byron Bay Shire, the lowest in the state. God, that's tragic, and it just didn't need to be like that. Look, I get it, you know, I shouldn't feel bad and whatever else, but I'm feeling this sickness, and it's such an avoidable tragedy playing out in intensive care units and in unvaxxed ICUs at Lismore Hospital. One of the people in ICU, Mullumbimby-based tarot card reader, Rinky Master Helen Dean, who previously protested against a vaccine mandate, she caught the virus last month and has been on a ventilator since Christmas. Dude, her parents haven't seen her. Like, her kids, like, what's going on? Like, that's super distressing. One of the questions, Miss Dean's anti-vaccination views after hearing about her sickness. One person questioned Miss Dean's anti-vaccination views about her being sickness. Sending out love to Helen also found on. Oh, I'm getting muddled up. Send healing love to Helen, but I also found this on the front page of the newspaper today. Please get vaccinated. No one needs to put their lives at risk for an ideology. Just weeks ago, Mullumbimby-based Archibald-winning artist Craig Ruddy died at the age of 53. Complications due to COVID. He was unvaccinated. Meanwhile, New South Wales health data revealed the impact anti-vaxxers are causing on the health system. Of New South Wales COVID deaths, 420 were unvaccinated, whilst 96 had the jab. I'm not going to promise you that being vaccinated is some sort of magical silver bullet. Just not gonna do it. It could have been anyone. I don't know if I'm capable of like dealing in that. That's horrible. Like, people are like, why do you get so sympathetic towards it? Because they were misled. No. I need to go into that a bit more, like, intensely. I lost my brother this week, like, through no communication. Like, he's not going to talk to me anymore. Because I won't sign on to his weird theory about vaccination. And he has a heart condition, and he's undergone 2 heart operations. And I'm not a person that talks about a lot of what happens to me personally, but my God, I'm gonna go on a freaking nuts sort of headspace if anything happens to him, because the idiots in the Atherton Tablelands told him that it was all a hoax and he believes it. I don't want to blame those people completely because I don't know if you know when you get your kids and you sign the thing to get them vaccinated at school. He once tried to prevent me from doing that with my littlest. And I was like, no, I do need to do it. And I knew I needed to do it. I did it because I don't know what's in it, but I'm around. So I got my kids jabbed at a high school. And he was trying to prevent me. In fact, it was even to the point that he said he would make a complaint about what I was doing without their consent. But I did ask the kids too, not as if I shouldn't needed to, but he did force my hand in asking them what should we be doing. So that happened when my littlest started high school. So he already had this like weird thing going on. So the pandemic just sort of skyrocketed into like crazy town. He doesn't use toothpaste, certain toothpaste, because he believes something in the fluoride, or I don't know. And I was the only one talking to him, and now he's out there in the ether, and I haven't processed what happened yet, but when this pandemic is over, it's taken way too much from me. I can be sick like this. I can get jabbied. But losing him is from the family. Like, he's alive and everything, but not having that communication is stinging. And I've seen it. And now watching these people die when they just don't need to is hard. Anyway, next story. Okay. I have a interesting story for you. So, have you ever wondered if the coalition government would ever sue you? Chances are, if you're friendly Geordies, yes, they've wondered that. And yes, not only did they wonder it, it happened in real time. So, want a guide to not get sued? Okay, here we go. Back to the fun story. Ever since the Big Potatoes' epic court victory over a penniless refugee advocate who had posted a 6-word tweet about him, Twitter has been not so much like the coward's palace, as Scott Morrison likes to call it, but the corridor outside the principal's office. Everyone is terrified, and rightly, that if they say the wrong thing, the wrong nuance, I don't know what nuance means, to employ it incorrectly, or post a photo of a walnut, which looks a lot like Andrew Lemming's face, that they'll be in line for a judicial urging and legal bill you'll need a bind and trust to afford. Consequently, in my professional role as a lawyer, the article goes on to say, I've been very, very busy answering questions like, what if I believe an article of religious faith, or that all Liberal Party politicians rape apologists? What should and is it true that legal tests for something being defamatory that would hurt Peter Van Onslen's feelings? Now, if you remember, they did this weird thing where they were like, no, we're just going to sue people now. So this is a very real question about being sued. Now, we're not being hyperbolic about this. This is a real thing that's happening. Like a refugee. Of all the people that you're thinking, no, they've had their fill of awfulness, let's sue them. Just crazy thing that we're doing now. You know, you get a coalition government, this is what happens. Okay. I tried to help tweeting that it's not defamatory to call Dutton a creep apologist, but that joke didn't go as viral as I hoped. It didn't even bother sending me a concerned of notice hurtful. The serious side of this, the chilling effect, is that the defamation onslaught is nearing freezing point. Everyone is scared of being sued and at least having to have their legal advice, which is expensive industry and often wrong. So here are some free tips for staying on the right side of the defamation line. Defamation is about the meaning, not the words. You may have heard about defamatory imputations. When you get sued for defamation, it's imputations or meanings which a word conveyed that matter, not the literal word of themselves. This means that, for example, if you were to tweet, Mr. X is totally not a Russian spy, you would definitely be defaming Minister X. Although your tweet says the opposite, the meaning of your audience would take it as clear. Sarcasm is not a perfect defense. Holy crap! You can't even, hear it. Are you serious? You can't just go, ah, that's funny. No. I've actually made stupid jokes like this. Hey, dudes, you need to watch my stuff. I do some shady stuff, apparently. I'm glad that, yeah. Okay, hold on. Slander or libel, what? All you need to know is a defamation, which covers any kind of publication, whether in writing or verbal. Slander was the old term for verbal defamation and libel for written, but they were replaced ages ago by the single definition of defamation, and there's no legal difference. Intention is irrelevant. Defamation is a strict liability thing. It does not matter what you intended to convey or why you did it. The only relevant that matters is what you posted and what imputations were conveyed. So this is going to be a major problem for a lot of people. We are going to see this being an uproar. I want to say this, right? We needed a government that was responsible with doing this. And it doesn't help when they do things like, we're just going to sue you, and to hell with how this looks. Intention is irrelevant. Liability is a thing and does not matter if you intend to convey or what you did it. The only relevance that matters is what you posted and the imputations it conveyed, not just words. Photos, drawings, anything. Now, I've spoken to you people about these weird Dutton pictures. Don't say I haven't. They were weird memes I made myself that were like, hey, don't do that crap. You're going to get me banned or restricted. Both actually almost happened. I am currently restricted on Stop Evil Murdoch's Monopoly, for those of you who are following along. Okay, really important. The court looks at the whole publication and considers the context of its publication and who would have seen it on a working out what an ordinary reasonable member of that audience would have understood you to be saying. One sec, I want to be able to do something and it's not allowing me to do it. And I don't know why. I'm going to have to fix it after. this is super frustrating because how many times have I said something stupid and you have not stopped me? So now I'm a little bit mad at all the people who let me just say stupid things or let a Peter Dutton meme slide. That could have costed us a bit. Okay, and who to work out what an ordinary, reasonable member of that audience would have understood you to be saying. Opinions are safer than statement of fact. If you state something for a fact like X raped Y, we all know what that means. The only defense you can run is truth. If you state as an opinion X has low morals, make it clear that it's an opinion. Also, the facts of which your opinion is based on it and may have to be stated of your own notoriously own. So, if you're going to do it in a super safe way. Like, do not back away. Do not shy away from these people. These are grubby individuals. They will not hesitate on being a shit show to us. So we should bring it. Okay. These things are always defamatory. Rule of thumb: if the thing you're alleging is a crime, it's defamatory. So rape, murder, corruption, fraud, cheating cards by or are all defined as defamatory. Likewise, anything that would be generally seriously frowned upon, such as someone cheated on their spouse, or had sex in a restaurant toilet, sent a photograph of their penis to a woman, with or without her consent. That's kind of scary. People really doing stuff like this. Spent a little bit further than what I planned, but I do think some of this is helpful. And I think as we talk about what we want to say in our groups and how we discuss these ministers and how honest we need to be. And yes, newsflash, fact checks matter. Like, I don't know, a couple of people I've had it this week where they're like, can I just post this? And I'm like, well, sure, but you need to say that's your opinion and not fact. And put a disclaimer on that it is not affiliated with my opinion. And they're like, no, don't worry, there are other groups that will let me do it. And I'm like, sure, buddy, sure. You know, but it's true. Truth is a complete defense to a defamation claim. However, you still have to prove it. So, just say, you know, a certain minister is on a certain take at a certain time, a certain fund or a trust, and there's a certain money trail, jam lane, etc., water, all those sorts of things. So, say you know certain things, right? You've got to be able to prove it. Can you prove that 900 word texts were sent? No. Some people were pretty sure that they sent them. And I can tell you now, me saying that it didn't happen doesn't mean that I'm free and clear because I know you can't send 900 word text. I need to prove it in a court of law. So be very, very careful. Okay. Knowing it and proving it are the same thing, which is why we talk about inside sources. Not just for one reason or another reasons. Loads of people like to talk about the Liberal Party as this weird ecosystem. You've got the side that's getting along nicely, the front cabinet. You know, all the ones that are getting along since the last spill. Not too many I'm hearing. Then you've got the backseat naughty boys chair. the backseat naughty boys and girls chair that like to leak and say things as anonymous sources. And they reach out regularly to say things like, hey, do you know such and such thing happened? And I'm like, I can't run this because, one, it's defaming them. Two, it's, you got to show me something to make that a real thing. And three, even if you show me that something, at some point they're going to go, where'd you get it from? So a lot of the time I pose with caution and say, I do not think that that's wise. It's weird that they go to the left though to dump this stuff. I think it's because, one, they know the story's true, two, they want it out there, and three, they don't want to say to their own sources that this is going on. There's a certain baby where that did happen with. I don't know if you quite remember that little one. There was a tiny baby. The left found out about it first. They were leaking on it, and then it was called a grey area baby. So that's one example of that happening. But everyone is posting it. Not a defense. Every time a defamatory statement is published, that's a new case of action. You may be the 18,000th person to tweet that someone whose name I've forgotten did something alleged upskirting. You can still sue you if you are wrong. So, Mr. Upskirting guy can sue you. Doesn't matter. You got to be able to prove it. If you don't got the goods, don't say it. I want to do this like PDA thing for everyone. Look, I'm not trying to screw you over from having your opinion. I like reading them. I like printing them. I like having everything that you say. Hence why I dropped the link down at the start of it and went with, hey, jump up with me if you dare. Because I do greatly agree with everything that you say. But there's a difference in agreeing with everything you say and then being able to prove it and keep the law away. I think one of the things that kept Friendly Geordies on such good grounds is that he could prove everything. He'd come with copious amounts of documents. Incredible guy that man is. Okay, but I'm safe if I put alleged in front of everything, right? Wrong. The law doesn't distinguish between stating it as a person did something and stating that they are alleged to have done something. However, it's a really grey area. There is a very famous Old English case in which a judge said a man wants to talk about smoke may have to pick up his words very carefully if he wants to exclude the suggestion that there is also fire. So, okay, let's read that again. A man who wants to talk about smoke may have to pick his words very carefully if he wants to include the suggestion that there's also fire. Meaning that if you laid on too thick, you can easily convey the impression that the allegation you're talking about is true. Like, I don't know, saying that you've seen an event which you didn't really see, which, you know, and then stating it as fact. This is quite common across the whole political spectrum, but I want to make that clear. So, so it's a minefield and we're all screwed. Not entirely. You can be controversial, opinionated, sharp-edged without taking serious legal risks. But it does require care. My main advice is don't assume the bandwagon is a safe place to be. Because it's not. Don't give the fuckers an easy win. Look, these are all things that I want you to take into consideration. These people don't care. They've got your money to burn to sue you. And you've got not enough money to burn to sue them. And I mean, the reason I want to discuss stuff like that is because we're leading up to an election. People claim a lot of things around election time, and they can say, someone told me this is definitely a thing, or someone told me that's definitely a thing. And I remember having a post in my group about a year ago that was definitely claiming that a certain thing was going to happen within the Liberal Party, and it didn't happen. That was a legal nightmare waiting to happen. Not that I'm against people talking about stuff that might happen, but it's how you word it. You can't say it's definitely happening at 10 o'clock at such and such time, because that can put people in a lot of hot water. But I want to be clear about what we're talking about here. This defamation stuff that I just showed is real. So be careful. There's one particular meme I want to talk about. There's one of Peter Dutton, and he is in I just want to call it a German military outfit. Don't do it. That is a suable offence. But now to the next story. I want to show you another thing. Okay. As we're talking about COVID still, we are still in the middle of this shit show. Sorry, guys. The reason I want to talk about this story is because Hillsong got a free pass. No fining, no nothing. There was no repercussions with doing this. And I kind of think there should have been. Not kind of, I absolutely think there should have been. One sec, I need to sneeze. Okay, sorry. Sneezing is not a nice sound. I don't even like how I felt that was painful. Okay. So, in response to that, the Sydney pub, Lord Gladstone, is hosting a Sunday service to protest the Hillsong church getting a free pass. Now, it looks funny on the surface, but remember, these turn into super spreader events. So do not think that you're funny in gathering and doing this stuff. It's not funny. It's not great. I don't want anyone gathering. But if it's fine for Hillsong, I suppose it's fine for these people. You know, and they have done it to other churches before. But apparently Hillsong's fine. Beloved Sydney pub, the Lord Gladstone, is rebranding the Gladstone Hotel on Sunday, the 23rd of January, in protest of the government's double standard when it comes to the COVID restrictions for hospitality venues and religious institutions. Next Sunday, the pub will be transformed into a Gladstone Hotel for one Holy Sabbath, as an ode to Hillsong Church, which continually given exemptions to allowing singing, dancing, and behaviour that is strictly prohibited in nightclubs and hospitality venues around the state. Now, let me stop there for a single moment. I do not endorse this. While I think what Hillsong did is abhorrent, I do not support what Hillsong did, and I do know that they have had several gatherings. All true, right? While other churches have been fined and given the cold shoulder. Not just churches, other gatherings, other music events. Next Sunday, the pub will be transformed into the Gladstone Hotel for the Sabbath, a note to the Hillsong Church, which continually given exemptions throughout the day, which will be celebrated in the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Cheeseburger. No, you read that with me, right? That's a cheeseburger. That says cheeseburger. I can't. I just can't. This is funny. Can't make it funny. It's gathering. It's bad. I'm supposed to hate the idea. Stop it. Stop it. Didn't take much to make me messy. Okay. Punters will be able to knock back jugs of $15 house holy water, the Lord's Gladstone House beer, or $10 Bloody Lords while being blessed with the sounds of DJ blasting your favourite hymns and gospel anthem. I gotta tell you, these are creative people. Never piss off creative people. They're smarter than me and they're funny. I want to be this funny and smart. I'm a little bit jelly, I want to gather and do stuff, even though I'm all stuffy and awful and horrible. I miss being able to hug and be crazy. There's a baby that I've been wanting to hug all week. But, see, my nephew, he's adorable. Okay. The venue owner, Mitchell Crum, expressed his frustration about the double standard to the purple sneakers, stating, "What's a purple sneakers? Is that it? It's been absolutely frustrating period time for all the venue owners. Someone sent me a text. Right now and over the past couple of years. Once again, it feels like our leaders are leaving poor, struggling musicians and artists in the darkness. Live music venues, musician pubs and clubs all across the state have been hit the hardest. Hit without any support or closure. I can't say I'm terribly religious, though I worship live music that does make me exempt." I don't know. The news comes after a major New South Wales music festival, Grapevine Gathering, was forced to cancel just 4 days before it was due to take place in the Hunter Valley region, costing the region $5.2 million and 1,400 jobs. Stop there. That's a very important part. No, dude, this isn't. And I'm gathering that thing was outdoors too. The government amended the public health orders to include outdoor events and its singing and dancing ban. So yeah, this thing would have been outdoors and all that kind of stuff. I still don't think you should be gathering. But I kind of like this group's... See, I can't sit on the fence about this. I need to be, serious. How can you have a Hillsong that just does what it does, and that's an indoor venue and everyone's close together? Probably not wearing masks either. I don't know. I don't think New South Wales has a mask mandate. And it costed $5.2 million and 1,400 jobs after cancelling this thing, and then went with, hey, Hillsong can go forward. The government amended the public health order to include outdoor events. But the ban in its place, look, I'm going to turn you off. I don't know how to, because I've got a weird phone. Okay, the ban in its place until January 27 with exemptions for weddings and performers. However, there's also an exemption for places to worship, which means Hillsong Mega Church will still be allowed to press on with its massive service at the Hillsong Convention in Sydney's North on Sunday. When asked about the double standard in New South Wales Health, the Minister defended its decision. People attending religious service generally remain fixed position. Masks are mandatory for these indoor gatherings. A statement from the New South Wales Health reads, Gladsong's Sunday service kicks off at 12 on Sunday the 23rd of January. Look, I don't want to encourage this at all. But if you're going to have this for Hillsong, what's the damn difference? They're going to be gathering anyway. And they didn't care what they were doing to other groups. You can't convince me that they cared. They just didn't. And it's appalling. And I don't know what to do with that. It has so many frustration points for me, I don't know where to go. It's got a lot of problems. So, I'm sharing the wrong screen. Stop sharing. Oh, I shared the wrong screen. That's crazy. I do stupid stuff like that all the time. Here we are, people. Okay, so I meant to do it like this. Isn't this fun learning with me how to not do things properly? Okay. I have this one. This is what we need more of. Because we've been watching what this pandemic looks like. I'm living it. I'm literally living this. We're ready to leave because Labor values are already getting us through the pandemic. Wage subsidies are accelerated, vaccine rollout, moratorium on evictions, support food for banks and charities, expanded mental health and telehealth. Because Labor had the plan all along. They just did. Australian Labor Party will adopt many policies. And this is why Morrison is going to be going hardcore. Do not think for a single moment that they don't have a plan that counterattacks this. But just remember, you don't hear any of this from the other side. Any JobKeeper, job seeker deal is written by Labor. The LNP just introduced it and then scrapped it. These were all Labor policies. They were good. Everything from the NBN to everything. Labor has the policy outline. You just got to stick with them enough to realise that they're the idea side and they know how to make things happen. The coalition government just takes the shell of it and then wrecks it. Like Medicare. It's horrendous. But don't take my word for it. Take this and have a look at the stuff that they've done where they're like, yeah, we're going to fix things up, and then they don't. Okay. Okay. Now, here we go. Hold on. I need to do something about that. So, one sec for my next send up. I want to make sure. Okay. This last story, I don't know how to send it up, so I'm just going to jump into it. And when I was trying to come up with a banner on how I would talk about it, none of it sort of seemed to fit. So, here we go. Trademarks on the taxpayer, Australia's $3.5 billion tank folly. The operating doctrine that many defence ministry is premised on faulty. There is an industry a need for employment. Okay, so Peter Dutton prefers to pursue arms program of delusional proportions, having cut ties with the French at the defence establishment over what was a trouble-plagued submarine contract. Dutton has been an important figure in ensuring Australia will continue its naval problems in the future with the nuclear power submarines under AUKUS contracts. But here's where it really bites into it. On January 10th, the minister announced that Australia will spend $3.5 billion on 120 tanks. But you can't. They had no plan for RAT tests. They had no plan for keeping JobKeeper or JobSeeker. Just keep the whole thing rolling round. And that's why I'm showing you this. Because they don't have a plan that involves being sensible. They would rather that we... not as if I'm against defences. I'm merely saying that they could have done better in relation to this stuff. And it matters. It absolutely matters how we were viewed here. It's appalling. Okay. Submarines are seaborne, stubbornly expensive and always stressing a celebrated potential offer from proven reality to stimulate the defence establishment. Okay. But yet we couldn't do this stuff for us. I just want to know what the plan was. To spend all this money on all this defence stuff. The country should have its defences kept. But what about defence of its people from a pandemic? Seems a little bit crazy, I know, that I would be like, hey, there's a pandemic going on, let's fix that. But isn't that disturbing? That their attitude is more like, well, you know, that happens. And that, to me, is a sign that they don't care. Not only don't they care, they've got no interest in showing me that they care. And it's got its own disgusting nature to it. I just don't know what to do. Every time I hear the government say something like, this is our plan now, we're doing this plan now, and you're going to have to deal with our plan. And this weird word salad that they have for these plans, I want to say that it's well thought through and that they got good advisors, but none of that's true. Every time I've given them the benefit of the doubt, it's turned out to be something where it's a weird rabbit hole of, well, upon advice, it looks like we overspent a lot of money, which is where the defence contract comes in. The defence contract absolutely was overinflated. They ended up pulling out the deal with the French. Now, apparently, we're doing it with the United States. We're getting all these defences, but yet we couldn't protect our people against this pandemic. That's poor. It's not a government. This arm of the Liberal government that thinks that, you know, you just need to fund war and everything else should just sort of happen is disgusting to me. You know, the fact that there was like this bidding war with trying to get RAT tests, that's outrageous. But don't take my word for it, take theirs. They're still messing that whole thing up. And, you know, it's not getting any better. But the next government, if we get one, will spend its time in repair mode. It's agonising to watch those abandoned by this government. When I lost my boy, which is what Julie Ann Finnery did, Albo listened and made me a cup of tea. Scott Morrison Lydon told me I am the PM. Well, Scott, I'm Dave's mum, and I'll still hear Dave's mum next year. She lost her kid it's awful. And Scott Morrison had no compassion for her, didn't show her any thought or feeling. It was a photo op and out. Albo meets up with her, makes her a cup of tea, see that she's alright, and shows her how to support her. This is what we're living with. We're living with the forced handshake of 5 victims and other victims all around. If I remember, this is a military mum who lost her boy. And this is how we treat him. This is how Scott Morrison treats him. He's a joke. He doesn't care. And the moment I've seen this story, I was like, oh, this dude, it's just endless. He will not stop. And the heartbreak's real. You can definitely, I've never lost a child, and God, I don't know what it would be like. But I'd imagine if you had someone like the Prime Minister pretending like he cared, that's awful. And then for her to just be that photo op for him. No help, no mental health services, nothing. Just sort of like, hey, yeah, I'll take a picture with you, and then off you go. That's disappointing. Albo did it quietly. Meets with her quietly, has a cup of tea with her. And a journalist snapped a photo of him as they were leaving. That was the other thing about this, is that Albo doesn't turn these into weird photo ops. Someone quickly snapped a photo of him coming out with her as she's still very distressed. That these are really, really, really brutal things that happen to people. And you want this government to be like, hey, that's really awful, how can I support you? No, not this government. It's a monster. But don't take my word for it, take theirs. Because they keep doing this stuff. But her story isn't unique. The 5 victims could tell you that they were forced to shake hands and pretend that he was helpful and nice and yada yada yada. The Scott Morrison can do attitude, but gave him nothing. Just a photo and pretend like he cares. But I have good news for the people of Melbourne. Speaking of government, so check this out. Hold on. I have to set it up properly. So, this is a COVID story. People of Melbourne, 3 million free rapid antigen tests were ordered in November, have landed in Victoria. 41 million more are on the way. Over the last week, more than 400,000 have been distributed for the free PCR testing sites and those who need them. I'm still waiting something like this. I need it too. I know my government has ordered them, but they're not available to me yet, not in my area. Because I did hit them up, and this phase definitely shows you I need it. It's amazing, and like how this all turns out in the wash, that they don't even attempt to do the right thing. The state government now has to pick up where the federal government just chose not to. But are you shocked? I'm not. These are the sorts of things that they're doing, and they do it with such, how do you put it? For just being who they. I really, really want to say that this is one of those things like it. The COVID situation isn't going to be easy for anyone. And a lot of people are going to suffer. And they're going to suffer more while this government does not help out at all. One sec, I'm just copying and pasting another, because I thought I had it all lined up and I didn't. Okay. So this story here goes back to the Novak Djokovic story and how the media, some media want to talk about it. Detained for no crime, Djokovic's hotel torture again exposes brutal refugee limbo. One tennis player's 5-day hotel torture continues to be the daily reality for hundreds of people for 2 years and counting. I want to go back to this story because this is where we started. Well, not really. We started with Clive Palmer, but this is where we're at. We're in the midst of this. We're going to be fighting this for a long time yet. I have every feeling this is going to be the thing that we talk about for the next decade. One tennis superstar's 5-day hotel torture continues to be the conversation. Refugees and asylum seekers who arrived here by boat nearly a decade have remained indefinitely detained by the federal government, leaving their lives of future in limbo. It's a period of time that has seen locked up children become teenagers and teenagers to become young adults. Hidden in a tiny hotel room, with no fresh air nor space nor leisure, lies the confronting human impact of the coalition government's hard line and stop the boat's policy, and has been thrust into an international spotlight. More specifically, the spotlight that shines underneath the exterior of a park hotel in Melbourne, busy Swanston Street. For 5 days, the Serbian national and world #1 male tennis player Novak Djokovic was detained after his visa was cancelled into question suddenly on arrival. The high-profile sports star had been granted a medical exemption from the vaccination requirements, but border authorities contended the proof he had provided was not adequate. He was taken to the hotel in the Carlton, where he spent 5 nights before a judge ruled his release to deal with the court matters. I've experienced 9 birthdays in detention. Mehdi Ali is one of those locked up inside the 4-star hotel, who remained in the room he's lived in for 2 months. As the world #1 tennis star, was afforded the privilege of packing up and leaving. After arriving in the country as a 15-year-old, the now 24-year-old has spent both 18th and 21st birthdays detained. This photo speaks for itself. Check it out. This is what we do. This is who we are. Or we're just randomly having this debate about whether Novak Djokovic should be here or not. This is what we do. We make a big deal out of sports stars, and people like this just languish. He agreed with Djokovic's mother, according to the BBC translator, and said her son's stay there had been torture. What? He's been there for 5 days in that situation, and it's torture. I would not equate him in a hotel room as the same torture as this detainee, but he seems to see it differently. Even for a day or two, it is torture. I've experienced birthdays in detention. Mehdi, who walked the hotel's corridors but can never leave the front door, lived in an offshore detention centre at Nauru before being transported to onshore centre in Brisbane and Melbourne. Many others who share the space were brought to Melbourne for emergency medical treatment under the Medevac law, which has since been revealed. repealed. While some have been treated, they remain detained. What the government calls alternative places of detention, or APODs, which include hotels, community housing, and hotspots. They treat us worse than they treat criminals, because the criminals at least they had a trial and a fight in their case. Long-term refugee advocate and Australian National University Emeritus Professor John Minns, said the extraordinary border policies were inhumane and added a further damage to the lives of thousands of vulnerable humans escaping life in threatening situations. Professor Minns, also an executive member of the ACT chapter of the Refugee Action Campaign, said the refugees' detention was more than double that handed to some people convicted of serious criminal charges. The average term to serve in Australia for the crime of rape is between 3 and 4 years, he said. These people have been detained for no crime whatsoever, and it's about 9 years. It's an extraordinary situation. It's not just an inhumane policy, it's actually a really bad policy. It's incredibly expensive to enforce it, and the outcomes ultimately mean that you're looking for after people who are extremely damaged and very long periods of detention. This part bothers me. I don't know when I'm going to get out. That should frighten everyone. Just sitting there languishing. No idea when they're going to get out. This is another reason I want to call for a change of government. You should want this. This man should not sit in here. For many, it's the uncertainty surrounding his release that weighs the heaviest on him. It's hard for him to keep human beings in rooms, in detentions indefinitely, not telling them when they are going to get out, he said. They treat us worse than they treat criminals. They had a trial to fight for the case and a sentence of the crime. And yet, I don't know when I'm going to get out. The Refugee Council of Australia said while Djokovic saga did shine a light on the spotlight, the government's treatment of refugees, it also highlighted a lack of justice. See, and I want to go back to that. They should have stopped Djokovic from even boarding. They knew that he wasn't vaxxed. They knew that he was positive with COVID. They just knew a lot of stuff. And they weren't being clear about it. Deputy Chief Executive Adama Kamara said Djokovic's ordeal was a much shorter version of the ordeal, but experienced a much longer under a more brutal policy. The Djokovic case shows just the unfairness of the process of people who are seeking protection. Because he was afforded a day in court and it was on a Sunday and he got, and he got to leave the hotel and, he got fair process. And the refugees are left in limbo. The advocacy group has been working with like-minded international groups to resettle Australia's refugees in Canada, because we're that much of a monster that Canada, and I've heard even New Zealand, is trying to get hold of these people. The plans to arrange a sponsor relocation for around 100 refugees, but it's been doing so through the private fundraising efforts without the government's assistance. So they won't even fund it to just send them to Canada to be human, because this is who we are. The tragedy of it all is that it serves no purpose. You could free more tomorrow, but politically neither the coalition would. I think Labor would, because they've said that they would. This is quite deceptive. I'm going to call them out right there. Labor definitely have said that they've got a different position on this. So whoever wrote this tripe about Labor being in the same position, they did previously, but now they do have a different position. They were politically aligned in 2013, but since I think 2018, that has been different. So it's not as if they haven't had the opportunity to change this. Same. That's just not true. No purpose except the measly political grubby advantage served in keeping them there. And that's right. There is no purpose in keeping these people locked up. It's inhumane, and Djokovic's experience has shown that we don't need to do it. They'd lose nothing and they'd possibly save lives, certainly allow these people to start their lives. Mehdi, while exhausted, said he was excited that Djokovic's short detention had remained in the country and that the world about the situation in which the refugees remain. But it was only a glimmer of hope, nearly a decade spent trapped. I created more of awareness for people to find out about us, and I'm excited about that. Isn't that sad? That a tennis player got more afforded help than a refugee running away from war. A war that we probably played a role in. That's abhorrent, and it should be to everyone. And I don't get me wrong. I don't know. Refugees need to be treated with respect. They've already had their homes taken from them, their lives ripped apart. They've travelled many kilometres for a safe home. We have the space and the utilities to give them. And we could just be bloody human. We just could. But we don't. And we don't because we don't vote like that. Clearly we don't vote like that. Prove me wrong. Show me this time that now that Labour has changed its stance on refugee policy, show me that you will do it. Show me for these people that we just spoke about, that you would change your mind. I absolutely think it's worth doing. Look, we have an opportunity to be decent human beings. Some of us take that opportunity, and some of us do not dare rock the boat. I have one final story for you in the last few minutes. Just let me tee it up. I am getting better at this. So, I want to thank the Americans again for showing me how to do this. Now, for the great economy runners. If you're wondering why the coalition government is panicking, hold on. One sec. Okay. So, the LNP are absolutely scared of this story. Watch this. This is one that should shock you. Santa did not show up. Business to business turnover hit its lowest level on record. So if you're wondering why they were like, go out, go spend money, go be crazy, you're seeing in real time why they were this stupid. Because they knew that the economy was in trouble. Like typical coalition governments, when things don't go your way, you just say stupid shit like, it'll be fine, and this one is not as bad. The companies that suffered their lowest Christmas ever since due to the Omicron outbreak, with data showing business-to-business turnover hitting its lowest levels on record in the critical month of December. The latest coronavirus outbreak dented the spending sales in December, and said Creditor Watch measured its business invoice payments, trade receivables that serve guides and underlying activity. companies have suffered the Creditor Watch data analysis. James O'Donnell said that the business usually experiences a significant spike at the end of the year as households shop for Christmas goods. And enjoyed the Christmas period. December 2021, average trade receivables fell 45%. That's a big blow. That's huge. They're scared. They can't call this election like ASAP. That's why it's been floated around in backrooms May. Because they're hoping that this wave will ease off, and then that's what I'm hearing. One sec, I'm just going to mute so I can blow my nose. Unmute. Okay. When COVID-19 hit, businesses to business trade really fell off a cliff. Mr. O'Donnell said the figures we're reporting for the December month are the worst we've got on record. What we normally see in December is a large spike. It was 5% spike this year, and it's really quite bad. Santa did not shop for businesses. Check it out. This is a pandemic in real time. I don't know what to tell you, man. I want to tell you that this is like to be expected, because it was, and you could have told them people stay home and try and save money. And when you cut job seeker and job keeper, what do you think happens, Mr. Morrison? Do you think that, you know, people are just going to plant magical money and spend magical money and do those magical things? No, they're going to keep it because you, being an idiot, did not keep support for these people to be able to cope. Stupid idiots. The results mirror recent consumer spending data published by the ANZ, which found consumer spending at its first week of January was at its lowest level since the Delta wave. The COVID-19 as households imposed their own restrictions to avoid the virus and push major cities into a shadow lockdown. Yeah, wasn't it wise to say, open up the country? And look, I get why I get that the Premier's meeting was basically do it because your economy is going to be hit and that sort of thing. I think there was a lot of implied threats and federal government that money that may have been withheld in that interim. That is an allegation made that is not substantiated. I want to say that quite clearly. Many CHOs were telling people, hey, you make a lot of people sick, they're not going to want to spend a lot of money. Geniuses, I know. Only a coalition would come up with an idea when you make loads of people sick and they wouldn't spend money, but they pretend that they do. Okay, since the Omicron wave did not surge until mid-December and continued to rise through January, meaning full effect of the latest outbreak on business is still unclear. However, some signs are giving economists confidence as they project into the next few months. One is the high level of savings on business households balance due to government stimulus during the pandemic. That was a very small, very, very small and short-lived. Some loan holidays still in place. This will come to an end in 2022. New signs are pointing to the default rates raising pretty steadily over the next 12 months. They're leaving a time bomb, man. They know that they're like on their way out. They're leaving a shit show for Labor. Call it what you will. This is what it's going to be. AMP Capital Chief Economist Shane Oliver now revised down his expected March quarter of growth of 0.6% from 1.6% due to Omicron, despite remaining confident of a strong post-Omicron rebound. No, it doesn't happen. I've looked at economies all over the world. This doesn't happen. He's lying. And these economists are always wrong. Always. And they're always some like weird LMP lackey. And this is going to cost them in real time. This one will be a real problem for the coalition government. So this is the one that you want to watch. They're going to be scared out of their mind leading into the election. They've got all this stuff going on, and they're not going to be able to say the economy is great. They're not going to say that they did well on COVID. They're not going to say they did well on bushfires. They can't say that they treated anyone well but Harvey Norman. You know, that's going to be the thing that they're running into. And their colour-coded schemes, which Labor has continually pointed out that they have these weird colour-coded schemes. Okay, November was a strong month for the retail sales as the Delta outbreak waned. It was a sign of pent-up demand that also may support spending as Omicron subsides. When the government imposed lockdowns that have ended in the past, they have been quickly followed by rapid increases in spending activity. What they fail to say is that there was financial support around those other ways. This one, not so much. Idiots. You know, ipso facto, why this one will be very, very different. But who am I to tell an economist what really happens? Almost a third of businesses said the supply chain issues would affect them. Now, this one I'm experiencing firsthand. I am trying to get a different phone, and the one that I need for the work I do apparently needs a certain chip in it, which comes from Silicon Valley, which is having a big problem. MYOB spokesman Steve Price said that there were some positive signs of 22% small medium business enterprises expecting the pandemic to stop distributing their businesses within 6 months. Our data from 2022 measurements across the breadth of the pandemic show just how optimistic and resilient Australia's $2.4 million economy can be, he said. I'm not so confident. And the coalition shouldn't be either. So, as we wrap up tonight, what did we learn? We learned that Clive Palmer is a douchebag and should not be building a Titanic 2, and that he has no intent of actually doing anything with that project by the look of it. Turns out that it could be a money-making shifter. We also found out that Novak Djokovic has had his claim rejected. How to not get sued by an LMP government. That part was interesting. I apparently had been running into several obstacles. Why we buy war armaments over COVID help and assistance. And how we treat our detainees over big tennis players. Last but not least, our financial outlook. I want you to have a wonderful evening, and I've enjoyed every second of it, even though I look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer and this. And yeah, thank you for joining me for this night, and it helped me cope, which should help you feel better too, knowing that you helped a very sick woman through these moments and get a little bit distracted during the sickness. Hope you have a wonderful evening. See you for next week's airing of This Week in Politics, and hopefully I will have some brighter news, a different phone, a car fixed, mowed a couple of lawns, and set up a good lineup for you next week. Thank you so much. Have fun. Thank you. Bye.